At the airport, my ticket got canceled. Mom texted, "Serves you right, loser." Dad added, "Stop crying. Walk or bus it." So I did. But soon they turned white when they found out every booking in their name was now void. The airport gate agent looked up at me and said there was no ticket in my name. I laughed. I told her to check again, said maybe she typed it wrong. I pulled up the email confirmation my mom had sent me 3 days ago. That's when I noticed it. No mention of my name anywhere. Just my parents, both listed clearly. My seat? Doesn't exist. Not booked. Never was. I stepped aside, confused at first, then angry, then just numb. I texted my mom. No punctuation, just raw. "Where's my ticket?" She replied instantly. "Serves you right, loser." My stomach dropped. Before I could even react, another message came in. My dad apparently in on it too. "Stop crying. Walk or bus it." That was the moment I knew. They did this on purpose. Here's what really happened. It was early December. I was in finals mode, practically living in the library, pulling triple shifts between school and an internship. I hadn't seen my parents in weeks. We talked briefly on the phone a few times, mostly small talk. Then one evening, my mom mentioned they were thinking about going to Breckenridge over winter break. Said they'd found a nice lodge, nothing fancy. They were just looking. I didn't think much of it. We'd always done holidays together and I assumed the same would happen this year. But money was tight for them, or so they said. A few days later, my mom said they weren't sure if they could swing it. I offered. No hesitation. I told her to use my card. They'd done a lot for me growing up and I honestly didn't want them to stress. I told her to just handle the bookings since I didn't have time to do any planning. I made it clear I'd try to come depending on my schedule. A day later she thanked me. Said they'd found a package deal for flights, hotel and rentals. I told her to make sure I was on it too. She said of course. She even sent me an email confirmation, but I never opened the attachment. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. I didn't realize it, but my parents were already plotting to cut me out. Use my card, book everything under their names, then ghost me when it was time to leave. Just take the vacation for themselves, paid by me. Their daughter. I only caught on when I got to the airport and saw nothing in my name. No reservation. No flight. Nothing. And then those texts came through. Bold, direct, booking. That's when something snapped in me. And I remembered they didn't just use my card. They used my credit card. And every single booking, the flights, the hotel, the car rental, it was all in my account. They thought they played me. But they were about to learn exactly how fast things can fall apart. I sat on one of those hard plastic airport chairs holding my phone like it was a piece of burning coal. I just kept staring at their text. I wasn't even angry at first. It was something else. Like falling through a trap door you didn't even know was there. They actually did it. My own parents. I checked my credit card app just to make sure. Sure enough, every charge for that trip was sitting right there. $1,058 for flights. $1,732 for the hotel. Another $600 for the SUV rental. All of it charged to my name. They didn't even try to hide it. They knew I'd be too busy to check. That email confirmation they sent. Just a PDF they probably downloaded after booking. They never thought I'd zoom in, look closely, see that my name wasn't on anything. Why would I? I was paying for it. I called the hotel first. The guy at the front desk was polite but tired. Said the reservation hadn't checked in yet, but it was under my name. I asked if I could cancel. He said I'd have to do it through the app one used to book. Perfect. I opened the travel app and canceled the whole hotel reservation in 15 seconds. Full refund because it was less than 24 hours before check-in. Then I called the car rental company and told them the trip was off. The car was booked under my profile, so I didn't even need to explain much. The flights were trickier. The airline didn't do refunds, but I did what I could. I called my bank and blocked the card. Told them someone had made unauthorized charges. Since the flights were under a shared last name but not my ticket, the rep flagged the transaction as suspicious. It would take a few days, but she said there was a strong chance it'd be reversed. And just like that, my parents' little dream vacation started to evaporate. 2 hours later, I was still sitting in the terminal when the calls started coming in. First it was my mom. I ignored it. Then Dad. Straight to voicemail. Then a barrage of texts. Why is the hotel saying the booking is canceled? Why isn't the card working? What did you do? Are you out of your mind? I didn't answer any of them. Just sat there scrolling through flights. I wasn't going home. Not after this. 10 minutes later, a new call came in. Mom again. I picked up that time. She said they just landed in Denver and couldn't pick up the rental. Said they tried to check in and were told the hotel reservation was void. I said, enjoy your family vacation. On your own money. And I hung up. After that, the silence lasted about 20 minutes. Then all hell broke loose. They called from different numbers. Left voicemails. Started texting me like I'd set the house on fire. Calling me selfish, insane, dramatic. Mom actually wrote you ruined everything. Dad said you're a disgrace to this family. They were stuck in Colorado in a blizzard with no hotel, no car, no working credit card, and barely enough cash to cover a cab. I guess they didn't think that far ahead. Me? I was just getting started. By the time they realized I'd cut them off completely, I was already boarding another flight. First class, LAX to Maui. Booked under my name, my money, my choice. I'd used the refund from the canceled hotel to buy 2 round-trip tickets and a beachfront Airbnb for 5 nights. My friend Haley had always wanted to go somewhere warm for winter break, so I texted her that morning. Want to go to Hawaii? Like, right now? He thought I was joking. She wasn't laughing when I sent her the flight confirmation. We met at the airport an hour later. She had a swimsuit in her carry-on and a bottle of wine in her hand. She hugged me and said, whatever happened, I'm proud of you for choosing yourself. I didn't say much. I was still processing. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them make me feel guilty for being done with them. While Haley and I were mid-air sipping champagne, I started getting Facebook notifications. My mom had posted a photo of them standing in the snow in what looked like a sad motel parking lot, captioned, when your daughter leaves you stranded. Comments were pouring in. A few people were defending them, old friends, distant cousins, but most were confused. Some were asking why they didn't have their own bookings. One of my aunts simply commented, wait, why would Olivia do that? So I posted my own update. One photo. Haley and me on the plane laughing with tropical drinks in our hands. Captioned, family vacation update. Decided to go with people who don't steal from me. Aloha. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to. Within minutes, mutuals started commenting, piecing it together. Screenshots of my mom's post started showing up under mine. Some even messaged me privately asking if it was true. I didn't give details, just said I was fine and that I hoped they had a warm coat. Meanwhile, my mom was blowing up my inbox. She sent walls of texts. First begging, then accusing, then guilt-tripping. You don't understand how hard things have been. We raised you. You owe us. We didn't think you'd be this cruel. Come on, we're your parents. That last one got to me. For a second. But then I remembered. They didn't even tell me they weren't bringing me. They literally sent me to the airport with a fake confirmation and laughed when I found out I'd been cut. That's not parenting. That's theft. The best part? The airline messaged me later that day confirming that since I'd flagged the charges and the tickets weren't in my name, the reversal was approved. The flight charges were going to be disputed, which meant my parents returned tickets. They were now officially stranded on both ends. I didn't respond to a single message after that. I let them spiral. We landed in Maui just before sunset. The breeze was warm, the ocean already glowing orange, and Haley was laughing at something I didn't even hear. I turned my phone off before the next voicemail started playing. They wanted a vacation? They got one. And now so did I. The first morning in Maui, I woke up to 15 missed calls, 8 voicemails, and a small essay's worth of texts from my parents. I didn't even listen to the voicemails. Just deleted them. The texts were a mix of threats, half apologies, and the usual emotional boomerang. You've humiliated us, this is abuse, we're your parents, and then finally, how could you spend all that money while we're out here freezing in the middle of nowhere? That one made me laugh. Out loud. They wanted to treat me like a credit card and a backup plan. Now they were mad because the ATM had closed. That was on them. I posted another photo that morning. Nothing wild. Just a picture of the ocean view from our Airbnb balcony with a cup of coffee in hand. No captions. Didn't need one. People were already talking. One of my cousins messaged me, asking if it was true my parents went on the trip without me using my card. I said yes. He replied, what the hell is wrong with them? By the time we hit the beach, more family members were reaching out. Apparently my parents had told people they invited me and I refused to come last minute, so they just went ahead without me. But now that the real story was out, it was crumbling fast. The best part? They weren't even in Breckenridge anymore. Turns out, after I canceled everything and the weather turned, they had to book a dingy motel 40 minutes outside of town. No rental car, just some rideshares when they could get one. But here's the kicker. My mom didn't realize her own credit card was near maxed out, and Dad's was flagged for suspicious activity because they tried to rebook a hotel with my name still on the previous canceled one. So now they were using debit, barely scraping by because they'd assumed they'd live off mine for the week. Meanwhile, Haley and I went snorkeling, drank cocktails on the beach, and got a massage at a spa with an ocean view. I wasn't even doing it to show off. I was doing it because for the first time in years I was spending money for me. Not out of guilt. Not to avoid a fight. Just because I wanted to. On the third night I got one final call from my dad. I don't know what possessed me to answer it, but I did. Maybe just to hear how far they'd fallen into their own hole. He didn't yell. He didn't even start with a greeting. He said, "You embarrassed us." I said, "You stole from me." He was quiet for a second. Then he actually said something like, "We thought you wouldn't care. You never used that card anyway. You're always too busy to come with us." He figured I'd pay and shut up. I didn't say it, but I was thinking it. I told him I wasn't their insurance policy, that I wasn't their retirement plan, that they crossed a line they couldn't walk back from. He said, "So that's it? You're done with us? Over a vacation?" I said, "No, not over a vacation. Over the fact that you saw me as a wallet instead of a daughter." And I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to either of them. Back at the Airbnb, Haley poured us both a drink and asked if I was okay. I said yeah. And for once I meant it. By the time our fourth day in Maui rolled around, I wasn't even checking my phone anymore. I'd disabled notifications from both of my parents, unfollowed them on Facebook, and set my messages to contacts only. My cousin Miles had sent one last message letting me know my mom was posting passive-aggressive quotes about children who abandon their families, and my dad had gone quiet entirely. Let them. I was done playing the role they'd written for me. It was funny. I used to think loyalty to family meant biting your tongue, funding their problems, forgiving them every time they twisted things to make themselves the victims. But when you grow up and realize that you're the only one who ever showed up when it mattered, something changes. Or maybe I did. On the beach, Haley asked if I wanted to extend the trip. She said it jokingly, but I could tell she meant it. I hadn't laughed this much in years. I wasn't checking my calendar, wasn't waking up to guilt texts, wasn't apologizing for being unavailable, busy, tired, or not enough. I was just me. I told her I'd think about it. But inside I already knew the answer. That night, we had dinner on a patio strung with soft lights and jazz playing in the background. As I sat there eating fresh ahi tuna and listening to the ocean, I had a moment. Not a dramatic one, just clarity. I didn't need to go home. Not to them. I opened my email and wrote to my landlord saying I wouldn't be renewing the lease. I didn't want to go back to that old apartment filled with memories of early morning calls with my mom, her voice tight, always asking how much was left in my account. I didn't want that life anymore. I wanted this one. So I made a decision. The next morning I booked a new apartment in LA, a small studio near the beach. It was a little out of my price range, but I didn't care. I'd figure it out. I'd been saving for years, always bracing for the next emergency, the ones that never belonged to me but always landed on my shoulders. No more. I also sent an email to my bank requesting a full review of past transactions. Anything that linked back to my parents' spending, I flagged. There were hundreds of dollars from before the trip that I hadn't noticed. Meals, gas, Amazon purchases. They'd been using my card for months. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted it documented. Let them explain that to a fraud investigator. That afternoon I walked barefoot along the shore, letting the water crash around my ankles. I thought about the version of me from 2 weeks ago, running through the airport holding a useless ticket, feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. And I smiled. Because now I did. The day we flew back from Maui, I didn't tell anyone I was returning. Not my old roommates, not my boss, and definitely not my parents. I was done giving notice to people who only noticed me when they needed something. Haley hugged me at baggage claim and said this was the most alive she'd seen me in years. I believed her. My new apartment wasn't ready yet, so I booked a week at a quiet guest house a few blocks from the beach. No forwarding address. No trail. I spent that week packing up my old life. I canceled the shared phone plan with my parents. I closed the joint account my mom had access to for emergencies. I removed them as authorized users from every credit card. I changed my number. The only thing I didn't delete was the bank's fraud case. It was already in motion. When they called to verify some dates and charges, I told the truth. I didn't need to exaggerate anything. The receipts spoke for themselves. One afternoon, I went to the storage unit where my childhood boxes were kept. Photo albums, yearbooks, things my mom used to say I'd want when I was older and had a family of my own. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes before I locked it back up and walked away. I didn't want any of it. On my last day in the city, I sat in my old bedroom, the one I'd slept in during college breaks, holidays, and the worst days of my life. The room they'd casually ripped me out of for a trip I paid for. I looked around at the walls and the shelves and thought, they probably expected me to forgive them. Eventually. But they didn't even apologize. Not once. No message that said we messed up. No call that said we're sorry. Only silence. Then blame. That told me everything. So I opened my contacts and deleted both of their numbers. I removed them from social media, blocked their email addresses, and set my mail to forward to a P.O. box I'd opened under a different name. Felt like cleaning out a room after a fire. Everything was ruined anyway. I was just making space to breathe. I didn't tell them I was cutting them off. I didn't need to. They'd feel it the next time they tried to use me. And there'd be nothing there. No more credit. No more daughter. A few weeks later, I moved into the new place. It wasn't big, but it had sun, a quiet street, and a kitchen that actually made me want to cook. I started going for walks at night, listening to music I liked instead of replaying old conversations in my head. I started sleeping. Not crashing. Sleeping. One evening, Haley came over with takeout and saw the framed photo on my desk. Me and her in Maui, barefoot on the beach, smiling like we got away with something. She laughed and said, "You really disappeared, huh?" I just nodded. Not disappeared. Freed.